between our company and NACI. I'll now hand you over to Chairman, who will share his remarks.
Thank you.
Following that, we will take your questions.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Welcome to GPL's boardroom. We're here today because of the ongoing strike of NACI with respect to GPL. Let me say at the onset that GPL and NACI have generally enjoyed a good working relationship. But we find the strike to be unreasonable, and we want to let you have the facts of the situation. Hopefully in the next few days we'll be able to amicably resolve our differences and all of the employees will return to work. As you may be aware, GPL offered last year a 5% increase, all-inclusive, to NACI. This offer has been rejected, resulting in the strike today. We need to take this 5% all-inclusive against the background that in the last 6 years, we have paid substantial increases to GPL employees. In 2007, we paid a 9% all-inclusive package. In 2008, 9, and 10, we paid a 6% all-inclusive package. In 2011, 8%. And last year we offered 5%. These are significant amounts for GPL to pay, particularly when we consider that the average employee for NACI in GPL cost the company 1.7 million Guyana dollars per annum. The wage bill for NACI employees alone, which number a little over 700, is 1.5 billion Guyana dollars. And as you well know, the finances of the company has not been doing well. We got a subsidy from the Treasury of 6 billion. Initially a 5 billion subsidy was approved by Parliament, and late last year this was increased to the original request amount of 6 billion. And that is not the first year we received subsidies from the government. In 2008, in 2010, in 2011 and 2008, we also received subsidies. In addition to that, the government has been lending GPL substantial sums to investment. All of this has to be repaid. So GPL as an entity has not been generating the cash flow that it requires and is dependent on the Treasury for subsidies for its operations and for its capital investment. As you know, over the last few years, oil prices have been rising. We saw an increase in 2007. We saw a massive increase in 2008. It dropped towards the latter part of 2008. It was relatively low in 2009 and 2010. And then in 2011 and 2012, prices were again very high. Last year we spent over 24 billion on fuel alone, representing 83% of our revenue. So when we look at the increase we have to offer, it is against this background. It is against the background that every dollar increase that we have to offer has to be received as a subsidy from the Treasury. And you have to look at this in the context of what has happened with other companies and other parts of government. Last year there was a 5% paid to many parts of the government sector. So our offer is not unreasonable. Our offer is much more than what we can afford, And so today, when we look at the position of NACI in striking, we believe that they are not telling you the truth about what our offer is and what the state of the finances of the company is. Because any reasonable person would see that we don't have the money to pay massive increases. Every dollar that we put towards that increase takes away money for maintenance and investment. And so once we respect our employees, we respect the union, and we want to have a good relationship with the union, we believe that our offer has been fair and reasonable, and that we should not be in the position today where they have taken strike action. So we wanted to let you know the facts of the matter, so that you clearly understand the position of the company. It is our understanding that the Minister of Labour has invited GPL and the union for discussions tomorrow. This follows on discussions that were held last week, chaired by the Minister of Labour, in which it was the understanding of the parties that no unilateral action would be taken to strike. But unfortunately, that seems to have been ignored. So this is where we are today. I'm going to invite the CEO to maybe expand on what I've said, and then we'll be open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Discussions with NACI on wages and salaries increased in 2019 last year. There were about 6 meetings where there were back and forth proposals from the union and the company. As we had said earlier, an extreme position asking for a 25% increase across the board. For annual performance incentive, they were asking for a range of from between 3 and 10 and 11%, when the normal range is from 0 to 10%. There is an automatic and scale element which they ask to be applied, and that is a 3% increase. I should explain that we have scales for different positions. In fact, I think we have about 15 scales, but 13 scales, and the scales have a minimum and maximum, and between the minimum and maximum there are steps, and the steps are in increments of 3%. So the principle there is that having stayed in a position from 1 year to the next, you're actually automatically elevated 3% up the scale. They're asking for that to be applied automatically, and of course they're referring to an agreement which was consummated in 2001 between GPL and NACI. That agreement had a life that would have expired at the end of 2003, with a proviso that wages and salary negotiations would have extended into 2004. As we understand it, the agreement basically has expired in totality. And of course, while we continue to engage the union and respect many elements of that collective labor agreement, as we speak today, I don't know that our actions over the last 6 years, many of those actions which would have been agreed by the union, and this is the all-inclusive offer, is different from what we are offering now. So in 2007, the union was agreed to an all-inclusive offer. In 2008 and 9, it also agreed to all-inclusive offers, which it signed to. In 2010, an arbitration settled the matter. In 2011, the union again signed and agreed to an all-inclusive offer. The arbitration award in 2010 awarded an all-inclusive offer. The all-inclusive offer for 2012, therefore, is not different from what has been obtaining for the years previously. So the position now taken by the union is that they want the 3 elements that are provided for in the CLA to be respected, and to be respected individually. They wanted the automatic 3%, which was applicable for 2001 to 2003 to be payable in 2012. They wanted an across-the-board increase, and then they wanted the annual performance incentive to be paid. And for 2012, that should have been paid in January 2013. So where we are today, I think, like the chairman says, our financial situation, the fact that we have to depend solely on our revenues, and of course, subsidies from government, and those subsidies have been directed at purchasing fuel. The price of fuel, like the chairman says, has been rising and rising continuously since 2008. In fact, it's only in 2009 where there was some respite. But the fact is, fuel is an enormous part of our expense, daily expense. We have appealed to staff. In fact, we circulated yesterday, in fact, on Tuesday afternoon, a memo to staff to explain to them the position, the company's position on what we had actually offered to the union, because the staff seemed to think that we were offering 1% across the board, which is not the case. The 3% in scale is not fully understood because it is in fact an increase in salary of 3%. It is like an across the board increase. But it's called it in scale because you're moving within the scale, and there's some persons who are already at the maximum of their scale, and therefore their salaries are not increased by 3%, but they're given the payment as a one-off payment. So the 3% is in fact an across the board increase, just like the 5% that we are offering. It could be paid across the board if in fact the union so desires. And in fact in 2007 and 8 they agreed for the 6%, in fact 8 and 9 for the 6% that was offered to be paid across the board. In 2011, the 8% that was offered to them, they agreed for it to be paid across the board and for it to be all-inclusive. So the position taken, this very hard position as taken in respect of the 5% offered for 2012, is a new position adopted by the union for some reason or the other. Thank you.
We'll take some questions.
Some of the more critical services being affected as a result of this work. And from Mr. Brassington, you mentioned that the offer that GPL is making currently now is more than you can afford. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Why even make the offer if you can't afford it?
Right. All right, so if I speak to the services, in Demerara, you would know we have not been affected by generation-related capacity, because most of our generation in Demerara is coming from Wetzel. We have contract workers at Lenora location. We have senior staff for sales and garden wheel who are carrying on the operations. So from a generation standpoint in Demerara, we don't have an issue. In Berbice, similarly, we have Gaisupo providing a significant amount of the power, and we have a skeleton staff both at Canefield and Nanvo providing service. From T&D standpoint, we have contractors who are providing emergency services in both Demerara and Berbice. In Esquibo, we weren't able to provide service at Leguan and Wakanam last night, and we worked feverishly outside of GPL to try to get assistance of a contractor to provide persons to operate like one and Wakanam locations. At Regina and Bartica, we were able to provide service. Unfortunately, the people who actually worked through last night at Bartica, we had to allow them some rest today during the day. They can be back this afternoon to continue the operation in Bartica to continuously provide service up to them.
GPL is losing money, and we're being subsidized by the Treasury. So, from that perspective, you don't have money to pay, you can't afford it. The fact that we are offering a 5% increase, which has to be part of the subsidy from government, means that we're paying more than we really can afford, making the money. But we recognize that our work is important, and that some increase is expected. And so we try to offer something to them. But we really can't afford it. And you have to recognize too that the cost of the wage bill for the NASI employee, with the average cost per employee for the NASI members being about $1.7 million Ghanaian dollars, this indicates that they have an average cost to GPL of between over 140,000 a month, which is quite high. Now, they may argue that they don't see all of that some of it is NIS and some of it is allowances, and but that is what it costs the company, and that is our real cost for employing them, and it's a significant number. I don't think there's any other state-owned entity or any other entity with comparable employees that would have a higher average wage bill per employee. GPL has a lot of non-salary benefits that cost the company, and so this contributes to the total wage bill. And this is why we've been saying to the union since the expiration of the CLA in 2003, which has continued to roll over, because we haven't been able to sit down and agree a new CLA. We have to sit down and reach an agreement on a new collective labor agreement, because there are certain clauses in the existing CLA that really we need to strike out. They really ought to be struck out by now. The in-scale increment, for example. There are a lot of allowances and benefits that the employees enjoy that maybe we need to look at consolidating those. So maybe they will see a take-home salary closer to what it's costing us, and maybe they'll be happier with that. But we're paying a lot of money, and any increase either has to come from increased tariffs or from a subsidy from government. The government has chosen to subsidize us, and so we are paying more than we really can afford right now.
Mr. Daniel, if you could, you spoke of generation capacity, and what about sort of other services in the other services?
Persons wanting to pay their bills could pay at our payment agents, and there are quite a few payment agents. Persons wanting to query their bills now would be affected because the staff to do that are on strike. Persons who are preparing bills or bill preparation exercise is not severely affected, because we've taken steps over the years to remove a lot of the manual processes out of the billing cycle. So I don't see that being seriously affected, the actual billing and bills going on to customers. I don't see our collections being heavily affected, because there are quite a number of payment agents who will continue to receive payments on our behalf. Well, first, there isn't a cost to it, except that, in Lagwana and Wakana, we're not providing service. And those, Lagwana and Wakana are less than a quarter of 1% of our total generation. And so, I don't know that we are actually losing money on a daily basis per se. We might be saving, because there's so many people who are not going to be paid for the 2 days that we don't.
What about emergency services?
Well, we have contractors who are providing emergency services. Contractors were happy providing emergency T&D services for a number of years now. And so we've just expanded their involvement in providing those services.
Out of the workforce for GPL, a substantial amount is represented by NASI. These workers are participating in the show.
Well, we have GPSU representing about less than 110 persons. And of those, I think there are about maybe a handful of persons, less than 5, who have reported 6 some yesterday and some. In terms of NACI, I've been advised that yesterday we had a total of about 357 persons out, and today we have 271. I know some sections of the media had reported over 700 and strike, but these are the actual numbers: 357 yesterday and 271 today.
Based on the financial position of the company, which is more likely, retrenchment or increased tax? Because we've been playing those two words for quite a few years.
Sorry,
Retrenchment or increased tariff? These negotiations have been on and off.
no, we have not mentioned the word retrenchment to this point. We have not reduced staff in recent years.
Is it likely, given that over the years, that isn't something that can be maintained? You're obviously saying that the company is losing money. Is it a possibility sometime in the future?
It's always a possibility sometime in the future. It's always a possibility. It's not an immediate issue on the table. But we have to recognize that GPL is modernizing, it's investing in new transmission systems, new substations. Now the substations themselves will require more people. But we're consolidating our generation in fewer locations, where the remaining plants such as Versailles and Onbarak would be more or less backup. And as we have a more modernized, interconnected network between Berbice and Demerara, with modern lines, and as we have new investments in generation, all of which, or most of which, is being operated by Wärtsilä, we don't need as many people in generation. We installed a brand new customer information system a few years ago that integrates a number of disparate functions, which makes it easier to operate. And so over time, one would certainly need to review the structure as we modernize. But we have not done anything in recent years, not for the last 2 years, and nothing is immediately planned. But that option is always available to the company, depending on circumstances, but it's not immediately on the cards.
Could you say to what extent, if any, a minor has been filtered into this? Because we spoke of the fuel bill, which is causing a problem, but with a minor, that fuel bill should
Yeah,
significantly.
but a miner doesn't come online based on current projections until early 2017. So remember, we were expecting financial close of a miler in the second half of this year, but then it takes 3.5 years to build. So you have 14, 15, 16, so you're into 2017 before a miler comes online. And again, a miler will provide power mostly on the generation side. And so right now, a lot of our generation is being done by Wärtsilä. In the last 4 years, 5 years, we've gone from 44 megawatts of Wärtsilä's in Demerara to 80 megawatts. And by later this year, we'll be at 106 megawatts with a brand new plant. And all of this is being operated by Wärtsilä under an O&M arrangement. So more and more of our generation is being done by Wärtsilä. In addition to that, we've got the Gaisuko plant, which is operated by Gaisuko at Skelton under an IPP. So the hydro will largely replace the capacity that is basically being supplied by Wärtsilä and by Skelton. We don't have plans when the hydro comes online to immediately connect Essequibo. They'll continue to be isolated. So the hydro itself will not create a lot of changes there. But between now and next year, you will see we're converting the system from 50 to 60 hertz. We're connecting the 69 kV line from Berbice to Demerara, so we'll have one interconnected system. And that's the transmission network. We do plan in the next few years to try to modernize our distribution network. So the direction of employment will move downwards over time, but it's not immediate.
Question first from Mr. Daniel and then Mr. Duncan. There are certain sections who seem to be convinced that the $11 million received by GPL can be used to facilitate this increase that has been called for. So, how do you respond to that first? And to Mr. Duncan, person seems to be convinced that your position on the board, that you could have or should have done a bit more in terms of working for what NACI is working towards. How do you respond to those claims?
If I were to respond to the issue, I saw in one of the papers today there is a claim by Mr. Joseph that GPL got currently, we are implementing projects which are financed by them, which came through government. So, the resources coming from the China Import-Export Bank, Exim Bank. Yeah, so China Exim Bank, we have resources coming from the Petrocarvi fund, and of course, you know, those are providing the bulk of what we're getting now. I'm not sure that they're getting the information correct. I don't know that any bank has provided $11 billion to GPL. And the fact is, if in fact we were able to raise money through the banking system, I mean, would you direct that funds to paying operating expenses? You won't. I mean, no bank, but nobody would want to lend you money to cover operating expenses. It would be to improve your service and to generate revenues to pay them back.
We have loans from a public bank, but this is for capital investment. And these loans have existed for some time. We borrowed additionally to finance the frequency conversion because there's a limit to how much money we can get from government each year. But none of that money has been used for ongoing operations. It's more for capital.
I mean, the Republic Bank loan, there was a recent $1 billion loan is directed at the frequency conversion. And for that project, we are looking to release the frequency converters from service, which is going to save about $1.5 million US a year in converter losses. Plus, there are additional technical loss reduction benefits accruing to the company. So there is a direct return from that investment.
If I may start from a position that I am a trade unionist and I understand how trade unionists feel. But my position on the board is not a representative of the trade union body. My position on the board is to participate as a director of GPL. And for that reason, it will be rather difficult for me to take up a position that I'm defending NACI or am I defending the Public Service Union. What in fact is happening is I am ensuring at all times that the board functions democratically and workers are not exploited as a result.
And every board, they have a fiduciary responsibility to do that. Carvel has ably balanced his trade union hat and his responsibilities as a director of the board. And I believe we're happy to have him here because he brings a perspective on the trade union movement and workers' issues. It helps to ensure that we consider them as an important stakeholder.
How do you respond to the union's claim fact that at the last contract the CEO signed was for $12,000 a month, and his new contract would or should see an increase of 2%.
Well, let me say that we haven't signed any new contract with any increase with the CEO. I'm not about to discuss the CEO's contract. There is a historic relationship on the exact contracts which go back to when ESPI was here. And in bringing home a number of people, including the CEO, we maintain some balance with that. But they are on contract. They're not long-term permanent employees. And so you have that trade-off recognition. And as the employees are permanent long-term employees. But the bottom line is we have not increased the CEO's salary recently.
I mean, just to set the record straight, the CEO's salary hasn't increased in the last 4 years.